Good morning, James Short here. Hope you're well on this lovely Thursday morning. So excited for our first Tribal Council session for the year, where we ask the experts, getting in experts in chosen different areas of their business, from sales to HR, finance, marketing, branding, IT, you name it, just to help you build that sustainability and scalability within your business. So very fortunate enough to have the legend, the superstar, the champion himself for this morning, Mr. Bill Carson. Welcome, Bill. How are you this morning?
Very good, James. Thank you. Thank you. I hope I live up to that legend status that you've created for me.
So before we get underway, what I'd like to do is to hear from the guys out there is just in the chat section, if you could, type in here, what's the word that has described your week so far? So if you just want to type in the chat section, what's the word that describes your week so far? Just in the chat section, that would be fantastic, just so I know you can hear us loud and clear. What has been the week so far? Oh, nice word, Matt. Productive, good, excellent. Oh, fantastic. Focused. That's what we like to hear. Good, good, good. All right. Wonderful. So let's get it all underway. Let's welcome Bill. Let's have a look at Bill has well, you are a true legend, Bill, because what was shown is that Bill has sold and consulted, trained, facilitated, and coached thousands of sales, service, and internal teams and hundreds of managers throughout his time. He has sold multiple deals from millions to hundreds of thousands over his 20 years of sales, service, and people development professional. His expertise is in consultant, coaching, skills training, and workshop facilitation. He collaborates, diagnoses, designs, develops, delivers, and helps you drive revenue generating, productivity improving, and cost reducing sales and service optimization in your business. Whoa, I love it, Bill. Love it. So, Bill, welcome. Let's
Thank you,
in a couple of minutes. Tell us a brief background about yourself.
Okay, well, thanks very much for inviting me onto the program today, James, to share a bit about myself with your listeners and the tribe. My business is the Sales Alchemist, and I assist medium and small businesses to transform their sales results through authentic value. And so what does authentic value mean? You're probably thinking, well, selling gets a bad rap often when sellers are not coming from a place of authenticity and integrity. And it's true of any professional that we don't like a doctor, a lawyer, accountant, or anyone that's not being authentic and honest. And in selling, we should always be thinking about how we create value. And the only way that we can do this is to identify what the value drivers are of each buyer that we're in front of, and everyone's different. So we have, in today's world, we have to be so much smarter as sales professionals than in the past. So I've been doing sales training and sales coaching for 20 years. My original degree was in science, and I majored in metallurgy, the science and technology of metals and alloys. And I worked in technical and management roles for quite a number of years, and then I made a big career change in the early 90s and moved over into the training industry because I've always been really passionate about teaching and psychology, and so the training industry made that possible for me. I live in Mona Vale, Sydney with my wife Leanne and our 19-year-old son Richard, and I keep fit like you, James, with triathlon training, surfing, dancing and golf.
Fantastic, fantastic. So Bill, who are you currently working with? What type of clients have you been helping as of late?
Yeah. Over the 20 years that I've been in sales capability, I've worked with many industries, James. And currently, my current clients are a small financial planning firm. I have a large manufacturing company that I'm working with, a small food processing company, an investment company, an agricultural products company, and a well-known insurance company. And I work with the owners, I work with GMs, national sales managers, HR, the individuals themselves.
Yeah, great. And so what are you noticing is the biggest problems and frustrations with those clients and clients that you've had in the past before they've come to you to ask for help?
I've noticed that there are a few consistent problems that impact different businesses at different times, James.
Right.
Number one, the most obvious one is underperforming salespeople, and this is always incredibly frustrating for the individual themselves, and particularly for a sales manager or the business owner. It's number one. Number two, I find that a lot of people struggle to sell their value proposition, and everyone's market is really competitive, and so a sales professional has to be able to articulate and sell their value offering to differentiate themselves. Number three is that I see a lack of consistency in business, a lack of sales language, sales process, sales methodologies, and this always causes heaps of problems. And then fourthly, I think this is quite a biggie, which is the lack of the ability of sales managers and sales leaders to sales coach.
Very much so, very much so. So a quick side note there, Bill, for the tribe, for the listeners out there, what is your biggest frustration with your own sales or with your sales team? Just write that into the chat or to the question. What has been your biggest problem or frustration with your own sales performance or your team's sales performance? Just jot that in for me now. So, Bill, with these frustrations, what do they ultimately lead to?
Well, first of all, with underperforming salespeople, that is obviously a loss of revenue, upsets customers, unhappy customers, and a biggie is that what happens is that if you've got an underperforming salesperson, you're actually losing business growth opportunities in the business. Secondly, when individuals, companies can't sell their value proposition, what ends up happening is that they'll discount and they'll drop prices all the time, and this causes a shocking erosion of margins. And I see this in a lot of businesses, particularly in very competitive, like highly commoditized businesses like manufacturing. I mean, even just earlier this week, I was talking to an accountant, and he really was struggling with how does he ask for more money for the services that he's providing, and so he's been heavily sort of, in a sense, discounting his time and not able to articulate his value proposition. So I was able to help him kind of rethink and repackage and rediscuss how we would have that conversation.
Yeah.
Thirdly, the lack of consistent sales language, that causes inconsistency, causes so much waste. You can't coach when there's a lack of consistency across the team. It's like the metaphor I always use is like how many different codes of football are there? There's 6. There's union, AFL, league, etc. So if, like, I come from an AFL background, and you jump up and catch the ball, and that's called a mark.
Yeah.
Well, in other activities, a mark is something else, and just passing skills and all those sorts of things. And so unless everyone's on the same page with the exact same methodology and way of engaging with clients, then you get a lot of waste. And then finally, if you can't coach your salespeople very well, you can't develop them. It's associated with poor leadership. You waste money and resources.
True, very true, very true. But when they get it right, when obviously when you work with them and they get it right, what with the work that you do, what happens? What's the difference that you notice?
Well, first thing with underperforming salespeople, one of the things I just absolutely love is helping to, change someone's performance, do essentially a sales makeover, or they self-select out. Just sometimes it's just not appropriate, the environment's not appropriate, they don't want to change. So, some people are stuck in a sales methodology that's 50, 60 years old.
Yeah.
And, they're not working in the 21st century where it's very different, very insight-based, the way in which we engaged. Also around the value proposition, really helping to help sellers and the company identify how they can articulate their value proposition, how you actually take the buyer on a thinking journey that helps them identify what's really important to them, and then do that matching process. When there's a consistent sales language and sales process methodology, then you get efficiencies in place. Everyone's clear about what's being talking about, and I've found Jeff Dunleavy was just telling me who's one of the sales human resources managers from one of the clients I'm working with, and he says that these days there's much more of a new buzz and an energy in the group, and because of the coaching work, the sales managers are so much more effective. They can do, like, a lot of sales managers just don't know how to coach. They don't know how to spend their time most effectively. They go out on sales calls. If they do, they just find they take over.
Yep.
So they've got to learn how to actually run a really effective coaching conversation with their salespeople.
Great, yeah, totally. That's so true, Bill, because it's a whole different set of skills from running a business to getting out there and doing the sales to then stepping into that sales coaching role compared to just doing what you think is, well, they should be doing whatever I'm doing, but yet people adapt differently, different learning styles, different connection styles. So it's, yeah, you certainly hit the mark there. Can you share a bit of a case study with us, Bill?
Yes. One example is I always do field work with any engagement, because it's really important for me to, build rapport, connect, really understand, the business at a deep level, because there are always nuances associated with every business environment. So one time I went out with, this a couple of years ago, with a rep from a manufacturing company, and this meeting that I sat in on with Richard, it went for nearly an hour.
Yeah, right.
And like, it was the biggest load of gobbledygook and uselessness. So when we come out after the meeting, I said, "Why did you let that guy just crap on for so long?" And he goes, "Oh, he's a customer and he loves to shoot his mouth off." Anyway, so I can't say anything at that time. Anyway, so after Richard went through the training, he probably a few months down the track, he sent an email through and just shared how things had changed. The things I noticed when I'd gone out with Richard is that he was very reactive rather than proactive. He had very poor questioning and listening skills. He couldn't sort of, he couldn't really articulate anything differentiating about his offering. He just feature dumped. He just kind of rabbited on about his stuff. Anyway, there's an example here of months later where he says this particular customer was putting pressure on him to discount, and he said in this email, he said, "I didn't want to discount, and I wanted to keep the margin. So what I did," he said, "is that I did the pencil sell." Now, this pencil sell is a method I teach that helps sellers to create essentially a business case or a value proposition, and all buyers need that, because everything has got to be figured out in terms of value versus how much I'm going to pay.
Yep.
So he goes on to say that so through the process then of articulating the value of the things that he was offering, for example, samples and marketing collateral and factory setup and training and packaging, then he helped the client to understand and see the value that he was getting. And then by putting a value on these, dollar value on these value-added options, the negotiation concluded with us not giving him a discount. He said, "I got an order in hand for a startup stock order of 16,000, and we didn't lose any margin."
Oh,
and like, this is just massively different from a guy who was just so different, many months earlier.
That's great. That's a great story. Great case study. So for the tribe, what has been so far the number one thing that you've taken away from Bill that you need to focus on for this week? Is it, for example, your value proposition is about getting clear about your message? Is it getting clear about who you are as a salesperson? Whatever it is for you, what's the number one thing that you've taken away this morning? Just type in here. What is it for you? Just write that down. We'll give you 10 seconds to write that in. Good. All right. Excellent. So, Bill, we love a good framework. We love a good framework here at James Short and the Goals Tribe Intensive. What type of frameworks do you use to help your clients that you can share with the tribe today?
Yeah, I love frameworks as well, James. I think a starting point for me is fundamentally all selling is a change process. Because fundamentally on all occasions, we're asking our buyer to actually do something different, to change. Now, in a lot of instances, the buyer will self-select themselves and they'll say, yes, I want one of those. And so they'll actually put their hand up, go to the store, whatever. So they're already started themselves down the track of preparing to change, and then they'll look at different options to help make that process. In a lot of instances, we might be introducing a change process. And so I found that Bernice McCarthy's format model is extremely valuable. So that's the 2x2, the 4-quadrant model that asks the questions, the why, the what, the how, and the what if. So,
nice.
So for any change process, first of all, why? Why am I needing to change? Why am I listening to you? Why are we having this conversation? And for a seller, like, why am I selling? Why am I doing this work?
Yeah.
And then the next question that has to be answered is what? Okay, so what are you selling to me? What have you got? What's going to help solve my problem? What's going to help achieve my aspiration? And then the third quadrant in the bottom left is the how. And the how is massively important. So if I understand the why, I understand the what, but how am I actually going to execute on this? And one of the things that I've noticed in the last 5 to 10 years is that people don't buy just the thing anymore. People buy the thing and the implementation of the thing. How am I going to use this? Yeah, and it's just massively important. So a seller has to sell not just to the what, but also to helping the buyer actually implement it. So if you're in real estate, for example, it's all the elements of like making the decision to choose the house and then making the changeover process, like selling your previous one and buying a new one, and how do we shift, and how do we kind of finance it? All those sort of how elements are really important. And then the final top left box in Bernice's model is what if. And this answers the what if, what else. This is answering, this is often perceived as in a sense the negativity. And every seller needs to always be ready to handle all the what if questions, the what else, what about. And often, in classic sort of selling lingo, these are often called objections, but they're not really. They're just part of the process by which a buyer helps figure out their decision process. So I also give these boxes another name. So the why box is the motivation box.
Yep.
And in other words, it's how do I get motivated? How do I motivate my buyer? The what box is the information box, and that's how we actually provide information and data, etc. The how box is application, so how do I actually apply this? And then the what if box is the integration. So from a learning perspective, I've got to get motivated, I've got to know some stuff, I've got to apply it, and then I've got to integrate it. And when all those elements are in place, then we significantly increase the probability of change and also of new behaviours and sales results.
Beautiful. Love the framework, Bill. That is fantastic. Are there any other tools and models that you could quickly go through that results in some of the successes that you've had so far with some of your clients?
Yes, probably the other most powerful one is Neil Rackham's spin selling.
Ooh.
Now, I've come across literally dozens and dozens of sales methodologies over 20 years or so, and I found that Rackham's model, which was based on literally thousands of interviews. So Rackham got a contract with companies like IBM and Xerox and Kodak many years ago in the 70s and 80s to actually have his team of behavioural psychologists go on sales meetings and actually observe what it was that the seller did and what the buyer did. So he got, so they set it up, they got permission, and so this behavioural psychologist went along with essentially their clipboard and took notes.
Wow.
And Rackham's, yeah, I know, it's amazing. And Rackham's work then captured all that and summarized it in, in one part of his work, which is spin selling, and then other parts of work called major account sales strategies, etc. And the acronym SPIN is situation, problem, implication, need, payoff. Now, the need payoff questions are actually the value questions, and Rackham didn't like the acronym SPIV, S-P-I-V, so he changed it to N to need payoff. The problem is that I've found, because I work for Huthwaite and who are the originators of spin selling, and a lot of people can't use spin because it's a fairly sophisticated model. And what I've found is a lot of sellers are just so basic that they don't even know the difference between an open and a closed question, let alone be able to use a more sophisticated strategy like spin. But what I've done is I've actually taken the methodology, and I call it what I call into the hole and up to the hill, or diagnose the pain and explore the gain.
Yeah.
And I've looked at lots of other influence strategies, and fundamentally this is the essence, that if you're in a conversation with someone and you diagnose what their pain is, what their difficulties, what their challenges are, and you take them through that journey, and that's what I call down into the hole, and pull out the consequences and the costs of that, then you don't leave them there, you don't put a solution to them there, but you take them out and up the hill and start to explore the gain, start to explore what the solution would look like, what they've done already, how they've, what's their vision, what's the value of having this solution. And you take a buyer through that model, that process, that thinking journey, then you massively increase the probability that the buyer will get clear about what their needs and issues are. And then when you attach then and provide a solution / present to that, there's a significantly higher probability that you'll get a higher degree of alignment, plus you'll get a capacity to drive a whole lot of premium because of the value that you create through the thinking journey.
Wow, love it. You know what? Sometimes we can really complicate selling and that whole sales process, but those two frameworks of the what, the why, what, how, and what if, and then the spin from Rackham, it really paints it in a easy step-by-step process. And for those even beginning on the sales journey in the sales career, for those experienced salespeople, and then moving into the sales coaching, sales management role, these frameworks really give it, I guess, a foolproof way. Just follow the process. And it's not about learning scripts and dialogues. It's about having, I guess, your own flavor to it, but utilizing those key principles to go through each of those steps and take the buyer on that journey, as you being the seller, or even training your salespeople to do that same process. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's great.
And it's a bit like if we look at any sport. So if you take even say triathlon, bike riding. I mean, at some level, it's fairly simple to kind of just get on the bike. But over time, you start to get finer distinctions around, how your pedaling is such that you've got to be pushing and pulling and pushing and pulling and, sort of just driving that, and how you kind of work, in the peloton, and, how that's how you kind of work with your client. And so,
very true.
So it's kind of, it's being very, one of the things that fundamentally selling is a helping profession. It's not a hassling or a hustling.
Yeah.
Because one of the things we hate about selling or sellers is when they hassle us or when they hustle us. They're trying to get a deal. But if the seller is coming from helping, then it makes a huge difference.
A bit like those lovely telemarketers at 7:30 p.m. just when you're about to sit down for dinner and saying they've got a great deal for you. So Bill, being a little bit cheeky, those frameworks, would you be open in sharing some of those frameworks with the tribe? Where could we get them? That would be awesome to share that with the tribe so they can start getting that value straight away. I want to throw back into the tribe. Is there any questions that you want to, that are hanging on the tip of your tongue to go, what would you like explained a little bit more, or what was something that you want a little bit more in depth, or something that you want to review, just throw it in the questions. That would be much appreciated. Whack it in the questions so we can get those answered as soon as possible for you. As you're typing away, Bill, what I want to ask for you, your contact details. How can the tribe pick your brain, work with you, find out a little bit more about you? How do we get in touch with you?
Yep. Phone number is 0425 555 268.
Yep. Great.
0425 555 268. And then my email address is bill.carson@inspirelearning.com.au.
Excellent. Excellent.
Contact me through LinkedIn. Here's another place to say hello and
Beautiful.
ask some questions.
So this is all recorded, guys. So you'll also have we've just created that new Facebook group where it's the closed group where Bill's contact details, the frameworks will live, and also this recording. So if you've got any questions for Bill, please reach out. He's always happy to help, always happy to collaborate. He's a master at what he does. So really appreciate your time and energy this morning, Bill. And thank you for the tribe. Thank you for the listeners out there today. And have a wonderful day. Any closing thoughts or quotes or comments you'd like to share us with, Bill?
I think the main points is probably number one, encouraging all sellers to have their primary focus on really wanting to help and create value for their buyer. And then for sales managers to think seriously about the value of coaching, because in a sense coaching is like selling.
Yeah.
Where we're wanting to actually ensure that our sellers are focused on our customers. Then the same thing is the coach needs to be focused on his salespeople to really sort of help bring out the best in them. And also to recognize that these things take time to stay on the journey and stay professional.
Yeah, very true. Very true. Well, Bill Carson, thank you once again. Really appreciate your time, your insights, your expertise, and your knowledge. Thank you for the tribe. Looking forward to speaking to you soon. Have a lovely day, and bye for now.
Thanks, James.